So we are midway through the 2025 draft class's rookie seasons and hopefully their long careers in the NBA. And I'm going to look at some of these picks in today's video and bring up the idea if maybe a team regrets their selection or not. Because some of these players were selected to be projects in this league and they were going to be more impactful players on the back half of their rookie contracts. But you may look at a player that went 1 pick later, 2 picks later, maybe a trade that was on the table, and you regret not making that selection back in June. And this isn't to say that they're busts by any means. We really can't come to that conclusion until at least 3 to 4 years when they're in the NBA. This is just really looking at the team building overall aspect of the game. And do you think that you can maybe build a better roster right now and in the future with a different player that went maybe a little bit later? So now that the 2026 NBA trade deadline is over, we now know who got sent out where. We saw Jonathan Kuminga go to the Hawks, Kristaps Porzingis to the Warriors. And if you're a fan of one of these teams and want to see these new players in action, you got to check out SeatGeek, and I'm glad to say that they are sponsoring today's video. SeatGeek has over 35 million downloads. There's more than 70,000 events listed on the SeatGeek app, sporting events, concerts, festivals, you name it. And it's not just the NBA as well. We got March Madness right around the corner. The MLB season's about to start as well. We have the second half of the NBA season and the playoffs as well. If you want to see some of these teams play in this year's postseason, you got to use SeatGeek. I'm also really excited that March Madness this year is in Philadelphia, the round of 64 and the round of 32. And I'm not too far where the 76ers play, where they're hosting these events. And I'm going to be using SeatGeek to get my tickets. So SeatGeek has a great system where they will grade out every single seat. And I'm getting multiple games with these tickets as well. So I'm going to be using SeatGeek. Try to find these good value tickets that are rated as an 8, 9, or 10. Green means good, red means bad, and they'll tell you when you're not getting a good deal on the ticket that you're trying to purchase. And of course, I have a code for you guys. You can use my code SROS 2026, SROS 2026. You can see it on your screen now. Link will be in the description for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's any tickets with that code SROS 2026. Link in the description as well. And thank you again to SeatGeek for sponsoring today's video. So I think we got to start at the top. And I think there's one that you at least have to bring to a discussion here with the number 2 overall pick, Dylan Harper to the San Antonio Spurs. Now, me, along with a lot of other people, had Dylan Harper as their second best player in the draft. And I still feel like Dylan Harper will be the second best player in this draft one day. It's just when you're looking at what Kanipple is doing in Charlotte, do you think San Antonio has any regret right now? And with the NBA being a positionless league, it's not the end of the world that Dylan Harper is a guard with Stephon Castle and De'Aaron Fox on this roster. But Stephon Castle has really taken strides here in year number 2. He just had a 40-point triple-double the other night. He's a really sound defender already in year number 2. They gave De'Aaron Fox a max contract in the offseason as well. So you're assuming that this is going to be the starting backcourt for the next 3 to 4 years. And unless an injury happens, I'm not sure if there's going to be a direct path for Dylan Harper to be a consistent starter in his first 2 to 3 years in this league. And we know his dad, Ron Harper, believes that Dylan is the best player from this draft class. And I wonder how Dylan's going to feel about not maybe being a starter in year 3 and in year number 4. Harper, Fox, and Castle all kind of have their inconsistencies with their outside shooting. So I do think there would be some limitations if you wanted to run out some 3-guard lineups, but maybe we see more of that one day. But when you're looking at what Kanipple is right now in his rookie season, he can make an argument for the best rookie shooting season of all time. And unless he gets injured in the second half, he's going to break Keegan Murray's 206 3-pointers made from a rookie back in 2023. He's at 183 right now. So he just needs to knock down 21 more in the second half of the NBA season. And Kanipple will be the best 3-point shooting rookie of all time. He's averaging 19 points, 5.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, shooting 48% from the field, 43% from 3, and 90% from the free throw line for the Charlotte Hornets. Nobody really expected Kanipple to go number 2. There was some discussion he can go number 3 after Ace Bailey did not want to go to Philadelphia on the night of the draft. So this is really the power of hindsight. I'm just imagining Kanipple on the perimeter for Victor Wembanyama, Stephon Castle, and De'Aaron Fox. I think his shot is going to be pure for the next 15 years. He was in the final round of the 3-point contest. Wasn't great in the championship against Damian Lillard and Devin Booker, but he had a great first round. The shot is so consistent. I think he moves extremely well without the ball in his hands. And yeah, he's not going to average 19 points in San Antonio, right? Wemby's going to get his numbers. Keldon Johnson, Fox, Castle, Vassell would all still average a decent amount, but you just try to think that Kanipple in a playoff series can elevate the Spurs ceiling right now and in the future with his off-ball movement and his knockdown shooting around your prized possession in Victor Wembanyama. I think Dylan Harper is going to be a really good player in this league. I don't really think this is a full regret right now either, as we're just about 40 or so games into these guys' first year. And it's really not a knock on Dylan Harper and what he's done, because I think he's shown great flashes this year. It's just seeing what Kanipple has been doing this year for the Charlotte Hornets 2 picks later. I know LaMelo's been great. I know Brandon Miller's been great as of late, but it really feels like Kanipple has turned the franchise around in Charlotte, and he would be a great complementary piece to Victor Wembanyama going forward. I'd love to know what you guys think about this one as well. Like I said, this is hindsight. We're still so early in these players' careers, but if the San Antonio Spurs are maybe not knocking down their threes in a playoff series, could they maybe regret not having Kanipple on their roster? And I feel like the next couple of picks, everybody kind of is fine with what they have at the moment, at least in terms of a project scorer like a Trey Johnson, an Ace Bailey, Jeremiah Fears, or maybe the upside Diego Drummond has. Conroy Boyles is a really good defender right now for Toronto. So I'm going to go to the 10th overall pick and talk about Kamon Maliwatch to the Phoenix Suns. Mark Williams has been the starting center for the Phoenix Suns all year long, and there's always injury concerns with Mark Williams given his last 3 years in Charlotte, where he really struggled to stay healthy on the floor consistently. He was even traded to the Los Angeles Lakers at the 2025 deadline, but that had to get rescinded because of a medical that came up. So it made a ton of sense for Phoenix to get maybe a value pick at number 10 with Kamon Maliwatch at Duke, who was maybe the #1 big man in that draft, definitely the #1 rim protector in my mind in this class. And this was actually before they traded for Mark Williams, because they traded the 29th overall pick for Mark Williams about an hour later. They still had Oso Ighodaro and Nick Richards on their roster, but it felt like Kamon could be the guy long-term for Phoenix. Now, when I was talking about Kamon post-draft, I didn't really think he was going to have much of a rookie impact. I thought it was going to take a little bit more time for him to develop in this league, but so far this year, he's appeared in 23 games, and most of it being garbage time for Phoenix this season. And I wonder if we're going to see more Kamon in the second half, because for my expectations for the Phoenix Suns going into this year, they weren't really going to be the greatest team in the first half. They definitely weren't going to be a team that has a 32-23 record and are the 7th seed in the Western Conference. So can they be comfortable with Kamon going through the ebbs and flows of a rookie big man season where he could look lost offensively, he's maybe going to get a little bit overpowered defensively, or are they willing to just kind of throw him out there? They traded away Nick Richards at the deadline. They just picked up a front court player in Hayward Highsmith on a 2-year contract after he was waived from the Brooklyn Nets. And you assume it's still going to be Mark Williams and Oso Ighodaro as the big man duo unless one of those guys gets hurt. I don't really think we're going to see too much Kamon Maliwatch going forward. So the one regret I think they could maybe have, Cedric Howard, who went 1 pick later to the Memphis Grizzlies. Cedric Howard has been, in my opinion, this year a top 5 rookie when you take into account what he's done offensively and what he's done defensively. In another universe, he's playing at Duke right now. He was transferring from Washington State to the Duke Blue Devils. Can't even imagine him and Cameron Boozer on the same roster together. And Coward this year is shooting 47% from the field, 34% from 3 on about 4.5 attempts a night, 84% from the free throw line, 13 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, and I think has been really good as an on-ball defender, point of attack defender. He could blitz you when you come over half court. He can rotate extremely well, and it's exactly what Phoenix was looking for at the deadline. They were in talks to maybe go after somebody like Najee Marshall at the deadline. How about just drafting Cedric Howard in hindsight, who could have just been that guy for you for the next 4+ years? You would have had him under a bargain of a rookie deal over the next 4 years, and then you were going to keep him long-term around Dillon Brooks, around Devin Booker. He's somebody that you could slide down to the 4 in some small ball lineups as well. And you already have Mark Williams, you have Oso Ighodaro, and I know one of those guys can go down any single moment, and Kamon is going to have to step up. But I would really like the sure thing in Cedric Howard, who is a little bit on the older side. He's a couple years older than Kamon Maliwatch, but he also barely played college basketball last year either. So this is basically his first full-time season in 2 years, and Coward at 22 years old has had a tremendous track record. We obviously know he tested extremely well at the combine, which skyrocketed his draft stock, and I just think he would be perfect in this Jordan offensive and defensive system where he's just flying around defensively, where he's able to rotate with guys that are such smart defenders around him, and Royce O'Neal, a Jordan Goodwin, Dillon Brooks. And he would eventually replace Dillon Brooks one day, who is 30 years old, but you would have Cedric Howard as maybe that long-term wing partner with Devin Booker moving forward. So I just wonder if there's a little bit of regret in Phoenix. Now this year, they've been playing with house money. They don't have many regrets. They are definitely succeeding in the post-Kevin Durant era so far. So I just wonder if there's just a little bit of regret right right there. And we're actually going to stay on the topic of the 11th overall pick for Cedric Howard, and I'm going to say that the Portland Trailblazers could have a little bit of regret right now, because on the night of the 2025 draft, the Portland Trailblazers at number 11 decided to trade down with the Memphis Grizzlies, and they ended up acquiring a future 2028 Orlando first-round pick. There was some other second-round draft capital in that trade as well, but the main piece they got in trading down was the Orlando pick in 2028 that the Memphis Grizzlies got in that Desmond Bane trade, and the Portland Trailblazers ended up trading down for Young Hansen, who is definitely a project center in this league. Young Hansen has appeared in 34 games this year. He's shooting 29% from the field, 13% from three, 2.2 points a night. He's had his moments in the G League this year, and he is still just 20 years old, and I always thought he was going to be a project in this league, but I think he just plays way too slow right now, and I don't know if he's ever going to be a long-term four, because I don't know if he's ever going to play in the starting lineup for the Portland Trailblazers, given that they just took Donovan Clingan in the top 10 in the 2024 draft, and Clingan has been such a good sophomore this year. I was really intrigued about Clingan this year after the strong end to his rookie year last year. When they inserted him into the starting lineup, it was no more Robert Williams, and Clingan this year is averaging 11 points, 11 rebounds, shooting 52% from the field. He just had a dominant 23-point, 18 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 block performance against the Utah Jazz, and he's 21 years old. This is the long-term starting center in Portland, so I really don't get why they traded down for Young Hansen. I know they got a future first-round pick out of it. I just didn't really love that decision on draft night, and imagine if they just ended up taking Cedric Howard originally with that 11th overall pick. That would have been a perfect addition there in Portland, and I think that Portland could have also called up the New Orleans Pelicans, another move that we're about to get to in a little bit, and they could have also gotten New Orleans and Milwaukee swap in this year's draft. They could have moved down to the 23rd overall pick and probably have gotten Young Hansen or somebody in that archetype there a little bit later. I just don't get why they took a backup center there in the first round. Portland this year is probably going to make the play-in tournament. They've had some great strides from Denny Avdia this year, and obviously Donovan Clingan, who I just talked about. I'm just imagining either a nice future first-round pick from New Orleans or Milwaukee in their possession, or just Cedric Howard. So yeah, that's going to leave us with the 12th overall pick here in the Chicago Bulls, and taking Noah Essengay, a somewhat similar archetype in a way to Matas Buzelis, not really projected to be a great shooter coming out of Ratio Farm. You're definitely banking on the potential of what he can be 3 to 4 years in this league. He's around 6'8", 6'9", still just 19 years old, but his rookie season was cut very short. He only played 2 games. He was out for the year with season-ending shoulder surgery that happened back in December. Y'all kind of know him from the poster that Johnny Fairfree gave him in Summer League as well, and Essengay is really just going to be a project player in this league. I thought Essengay could go in this range. I just didn't really like the fit for the Chicago Bulls, and if they weren't going to make a trade, how about Derek Queen, who I thought fit this system and this offense really well, and Derek Queen would have probably been a lot better of a pick than Noah Essengay. They needed a long-term center. They traded away Nikola Vucevic this year at the deadline. Zach Collins is probably not going to be on the roster next year. Same with Nick Richards, and it's really just Jalen Smith as a long-term piece. So Derek Queen could have immediately been your big man for the future that can be in this run-and-gun style of offensive play with Josh Giddey and Matas Buzelis. Or you look at some of the other guys as well. Carter Bryant could have made a lot of sense for the Chicago Bulls, in my opinion, instead of Noah Essengay, who can really be a legitimate 3-and-D piece right away for you. And I think his three-point shot has developed nicely over time. I mean, Thomas Sorber is also going to be out his whole rookie year with an ACL tear, but I just think him as a long-term center option for you instead of Noah Essengay at the 4 could have made a little bit more sense. Yohan Berenjay as well, who ended up going 17 to the Minnesota Timberwolves. So I thought there was plenty of options for the Chicago Bulls to maybe take there at number 12 instead of Noah Essengay. Or you could point out too, why did they get Joe Dumars on the phone, and why didn't Chicago trade down to the 23rd overall pick? You're probably not getting Noah Essengay there, but you're getting a very valuable Milwaukee Bucks Pelicans first-round pick that Atlanta smartly took at number 13. And yeah, that's another regret from the 2025 draft class, in my opinion. Derek Queen might end up on all-rookie first team. He's at least going to end up on all-rookie second team at the absolute minimum. I do think Derek Queen has a ceiling in this league on what he can be because he's very offensive-minded. I don't think he could be a good enough rim protector whatsoever. He's a little bit in that tweener size at 6'9", so I don't think he's big enough nor athletic enough to be that 5 for you. And he's also not a great floor spacer either. So he's somebody that likes to dominate the ball and succeeds a lot with the ball in his hands. And I'm not sure if that's going to result to wins in New Orleans for the next few years. So we all know that New Orleans traded up from the 23rd overall pick, which could also be another regret. Them trading Indiana their first round pick back in the 2026 draft this season for the 23rd overall pick before game 7, in which Tyrese Halliburton tore his Achilles. So if Joe Dumars just waited a week to make that trade, Yeah, he could have had the Pacers first round pick this year as well, given that was top 4 protected. But either way, they trade away that 23rd overall pick and their unprotected pick swap between them and the Milwaukee Bucks, two teams that didn't really make big splashes in the 2025 offseason. The Pelicans were always a team that we had to see it before we could believe it, that they can actually be a playoff team. And Milwaukee was in the middle of all this Giannis Antetokounmpo drama. And here we are halfway through the year. That pick is at number 3 from the New Orleans Pelicans, because the Pelicans have been one of the worst teams in the NBA this year. They're 15-41. The Milwaukee Bucks are also a bottom 10 team in the NBA right now. But if you run a couple lottery sims, it's a very good chance that the Pelicans just gave the Atlanta Hawks a top 3 pick or a top 4 pick in a loaded 2026 NBA draft, and that is going to be just a massive regret. Yeah, if that pick falls to 7 or 8, you can live with it a little bit more, but now that the Hawks are going to have most likely 2 chances for that pick to go up into the top 4 from New Orleans and Milwaukee, how can you not regret this if you're New Orleans? Maybe if Derek Queen looked as good as Cooper Flagg or Kanipple or some of these elite rookies this season, then I could get it. I just don't think you can really justify that at the moment. So they ended up trading up for Derek Queen at 13. He was definitely not going to be there at 23. I wonder if they could have still traded up to 23, but offered maybe a top 3 protection on that pick. I think Atlanta would have definitely thought long and hard about potentially doing that. Or maybe you trade away the 2027 first round pick between you and the Milwaukee Bucks, because that is a weaker draft class on paper. We all knew about Peterson, DeBonsa, and Boozer going into the 2025 draft. I still can't believe to this day that Joe Dumars made that trade, because it's not just like they traded away their first round pick, which would be risky enough in its own right. It's just because you also traded away the Milwaukee Bucks first round pick side of things for a team that might trade away Giannis Antetokounmpo. I thought it didn't make any sense on draft night. It still doesn't make much sense today. I feel really bad for Derek Queen that he's always going to have to hear about that move throughout his NBA career. And New Orleans is now just crossing their fingers that they just gave Atlanta the 8th overall pick and not a top 3 pick on the night of the 2026 draft lottery. So I talked about before the young Hansen pick at 16. I wonder, in a different world, would Portland rather have somebody like a Yohan Berenger instead, who went 1 pick later to the Minnesota Timberwolves? Plenty of guards, plenty of high upside wings like Drake Powell and Will Riley went after. I think Joe Cronin regrets that one just a little bit. And then we're going to go down here to the 26th overall pick from the Brooklyn Nets, a team that already took Igor Drummond and Nolan Traore with the 8th overall pick and the 19th overall pick. And then they ended up taking Ben Saraf with the 26th overall pick. Why? We all knew on the night of the draft that the Brooklyn Nets had a very perplexing draft strategy. It didn't really make a lot of sense to take these high upside lead guards going forward. Now, Igor Drummond has been more of just kind of like a spot up shooter this year. He's actually been one of the best 3-point shooting rookies as of late. Nolan Traore is really starting to find his stride as a floor general over the last few games leading up to the All-Star break. And Ben Saraf has definitely shown the least out of any of the 5 first-round picks the Brooklyn Nets made. So now I'm just wondering, why did they make that selection when guys like Hugo Gonzalez went after Ben Saraf, or Yannick Konan-Niederhauser, or Sion James, just some of these more athletic bigs or wings that you could really fill out your roster with? Because when I was talking about Dylan Harper before, right, he's probably never going to crack the starting lineup anytime soon. Ben Saraf is really going to struggle to crack the rotation, I think, consistently moving forward. Obviously, this year, it's going to be a big wait-and-see period for Ben Saraf, because the Nets are not a good team, so we can actually get close to 20 minutes a night. But what happens when the Nets take somebody in the top 10 in the 2026 draft and they sign a free agent or two, or they trade for a guy or two, and now Ben Saraf goes from maybe your like 5th most intriguing guy, 6th most intriguing guy, to like your 11th or 12th most intriguing guy going forward? And these young guards really do need their playing time. They really need to go through the ups and downs of what a rookie and young guard is going to go through in the NBA. So I'm just wondering, could they want to have that one back a little bit? I think Hugo Gonzalez would have been a really fun fit on the perimeter with Drake Powell, just these 2 nightmarish defenders for you on the perimeter. So I think that's the last first round regret that I think we could see from the 2025 draft right now. And yeah, the second round could be a little bit more volatile, that's for sure. One pick that really sticks out in my head, what the Philadelphia 76ers did at 35, because Daryl Morey, he can make some bad transactions and some bad moves, right? But he knows how to draft, and he took VJ Edgecombe at number 3. That's looking like a good pick. They took Janai Broome at 35. I just felt like Janai Broome was not a Philadelphia 76er type pick whatsoever. He didn't really fit the Daryl Morey high upside mold at all. And Janai Broome has kind of been a disaster when he's been out there this season for the Philadelphia 76ers. And he's also 23. And I actually talked about pre-draft that I thought his teammate at Auburn in the front court, Dylan Cardwell, could actually be more of a long-term piece in the NBA, given his rim protection protection and his athletic ability over Janai Broome, who could dominate the college level. Hey, when you're 22 years old going up against 17 and 18-year-olds, you could really put up some nice numbers, but the NBA is a different beast, and you're looking at some of the big men that went after him, specifically Maxime Reynaud, who went 7 picks later. I think could have made a lot more sense for the Philadelphia 76ers this year. I think he's a more polished offensive talent right now. And then the last one I have here from the second round, like I said, it's really tough to evaluate the second round going into the NBA draft, but what the Bucks did at 47 still makes no sense to me to this day. Bogoljub Markovic. I don't get why the Bucks took the biggest project here in the second round, who's not even playing in the States at the moment. He's still playing in Serbia for Megabasket. And I remember Shams reporting on the night of the draft that Giannis was really going to be involved in this decision and then hope that this pick could actually contribute for them this year. Well, they're getting 0 playing time out of Markovic this year. Guys like Javon Small, Tyrese Proctor, Kobe Sanders, Mohamed Diawara, Will Richard, and Jemai Mayshak could have made so much more of an impact for the Milwaukee Bucks this season. And maybe Markovic is some draft and stash that actually works out down the line. But especially if it's a second round draft and stash, they don't really tend to work out whatsoever. The time was now for Giannis Antetokounmpo. They already punted on the 2024 draft when they took AJ Johnson in the first round. John Horst has made some really bad decision making throughout the NBA draft ever since they took maybe Dante DiVincenzo in 2018 or more so going back to 2013 when they took Giannis Antetokounmpo. You can make an argument they've had like 2 good draft picks in the last decade plus. So yeah, that is gonna be it for me. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, I would appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. Let me know if you think your team has any draft regrets right now, or maybe there's a regret that I didn't mention or one that I brought up that you definitely disagree with. Let me know down below. Subscribe for more content like this. Catch you on the next one. Peace.